Morning, folks. Kevin here. Well, it's October 29th, 2025, and out by the workshop. Going to do some work on the workshop today as well. And don't know what I'll film today, like I say often. There's a couple of things I've got to do in the office today. Usually I like doing it first thing in the morning, but I wanted to get out here as the sun's coming up and finish up the door jambs and see how much time that takes me. And I've got something I want to watch regarding the Maryland court case. So that's something I want to go inside for, I think at 9:30 and all. But I've got plenty of time to get more things finished here to start out with. So yesterday I got these door jambs in most of the doors. I have one more door to do. So I got these in. I made these flush with the plywood outer surface here. So that when the metal siding goes on, it's nice and smooth all the way around here. Now, because the plywood was typically you'd put this on first and then you'd have the plywood sheathing on the outside of this. That's typically what you would do. But as a result, that makes it a ½ inch shy, well, 15-30 seconds shy of the finished, not the finished, but the rough internal face. So yesterday, you may have noticed I was ripping on the table saw 1.5 inch pieces of plywood that's ½ inch thick, which will bring this inner surface now, if you see that, flush with the 2x6s here. And you want to make sure that this whole block is pretty darn solid, because on the face of this there'll be a 2x6 or even wider face here that will mount the track that will allow the overhead door to go up and down. So that's just very important. So ideally all of the jacks are on ahead of time. That wasn't done this time, and then the plywood sheathing goes on the outside of this, and this would be in. But since that didn't happen, we just adjusted our plans, put the jack here, and I'll go around later. I'll do it when it's warm. When it's warmer, I'll glue this and nail this, and then the 2x6 will go right on the face of this as well. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm working through my pressure treated lumber here. I've got one more, I think it's a 12-footer that I'll cut down for this 9-foot opening here. But I'll show you the one that I did yesterday over here. So because of the overhang for this building right here, I had to notch out this 2x6 here. So, and I put some more of the ice and water to wrap around there, because as the water comes down, I didn't want anything to whip in behind there. We'll put another piece of ice and water on the outside of that as well, most likely. I'll have to see when they do the siding how they're planning on doing it, but I'm thinking another piece of ice and water there. And that brings up a question that Jan had commented. She's one of my neighbors who I guess just discovered that we have a YouTube channel. So thanks for subscribing, Jan, and you can see what's going on over here with the Wallaces. And her comment or question was, so she commented on a video where I was doing the patching of the ice and water on the roof, and I had mentioned using a roller. It's a heavy, small diameter roller that some pros who put this on. Now, for the Amish's credit, this is the first time they've ever probably put this product on. So as I mentioned, there's a few things that should have been done differently. So as you can see, you may be able to see the edge of the plywood up there. Well, ideally the ice and water would have come over 4 to 6 inches on the fascia board there. But and when they rolled it, they weren't maintaining a taunt level, a taunt force on the ice and water when they were doing it, which allowed it to wrinkle some. And they weren't windy days. They were just in a rush and treating it like other underlayments that they put on in the past, is my suspicion. And then after they did the first part, I went over how to cut it and how to roll it so that the paper comes off as you're rolling it across. But if there isn't that someone holding it taut, then what happens is there'll be little. When it's not taut, there's the possibility of wrinkles getting started. But the roller is actually utilized at the time that they're actually installing it. In other words, that roller is going through and making sure that any places that haven't adhered to the plywood or OSB, whatever it is that they're applying, that makes contact. It removes any airspace between the two. It doesn't eliminate wrinkles. It eliminates these air spaces. And if you watch what I was doing up there on the roof, which every place that I would be running my foot up and down on the roof, trying to get any places where the ice and water membrane hadn't made good contact with the roof, it would make contact, especially since it was a sunny day when I was up there. So the roller can't get rid of wrinkles. Once that ice and water adheres to that surface, it's there permanently. There's no peeling it back up. The adhesive on the underside of that is permanently attached. You're just going to tear that membrane apart if you do try and pull it up. So yeah, and the other thing I would say is I complained about a couple of things. One, the nails not being completely embedded in the plywood. And anybody who's operated nail guns, whether they're pneumatic or battery operated, knows that sometimes, like, there might be a knot in the truss underneath it, or the 2x6 or your 2x4, and it doesn't completely penetrate, and just the thickness of the nail head is sticking up, or a little bit more than that, and that's just a challenge. And when you're, I guess, as a pro and all that, they're just moving right along. They've got to keep going. With me, someone like me, I'm looking at everything before I proceed to the next step. I've learned over the years not to rush. So that's one thing. The other thing that I mentioned was where the staples were used. Now there really isn't anything wrong, and I don't have, I have an empty roll. Maybe I'll show the empty roll. There's nothing wrong with using staples when you're putting down this material. Just like when you're adding putting shingles on, there's specific places where you place your nails that the next row of shingles are going to overlap. So here's one of the cardboard rolls here. And let's say this is towards the top of the peak of the roof, and that's down towards the bottom edge of it. And you're rolling this out you're rolling this down onto the roof. The peak is over this side, and this part here is actually overlapping a few inches of the previous. Let me lay another one down here. So this is, it's a little bit too much. So this is the previous roll, and that's the sheathing, the ice and water that's been previously laid down. The place that you can safely place the staples is in this couple inches from the top. You don't want to put them anyplace else down there because it's a potential penetration that water or moisture can get through. And this stuff is really good as far as sealing around nails and staples and all. So it isn't as much of a risky factor as you might think, but good practice would tell you if you need to use staples, it would be at this end. And again, that's downhill. This is uphill because the next roll is going to cover up those staples. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, I think that covers that. Now over here on this side, this is where I'm going to go ahead and notch out a 1/2 inch there for that 2x6 to go there. And again, one of the things I have to do is make sure that that our plywood is not sticking out any further than the 2x6. So that's the thing, is making sure that we're in good shape all the way around as I go to do this. So that's my intro. Then another thing I'll have to do after I get those jambs up, I have to restack this lumber so I clear this area out, because I'm going to want to bring the overhead doors into this area. The garage doors, overhead doors are out there. They've been covered up. I want to bring the tracks in and bring the overhead doors in, because that's going to be pretty soon. I'd like to get the doors out of the garage, but they're going to be heavy. I'm going to wait until I've got someone to help me move some of these heavy duty buggers and all. And there's another thing to be doing, to be thinking about. Now, often guys, when let's say I've got my stud here, my jack is here, and I've got my plywood spacer that I explained, because this will be out some. Let's say I've got all that there. The next thing to do if you're going to install the overhead doors, put those 2x6s that extend all the way up to the ceiling up there and all. And when we take that 2x6, that's going to bring it right about to here. I want to make sure that I've got enough nail space to deal with this. Now, I've got a nailer here, and I should have a nailer here when I have a 2x6 out here. So I just want to make sure that I got nailer spaces, because otherwise what I need to do is put insulation in these places before I go put up some plywood and then put that. So typically your 2x6 will go right up against here, and your wall sheathing will go up against that 2x6, whether it's drywall in your home potentially, or plywood or OSB, whatever it is. It'll butt up against that 2x6. Because you want that 2x6 mounted securely to these jack and king studs here for when you're mounting your hardware, because that's going to have lag bolts going right into it, and you want it really strong, because you don't want that overhead door track starting to pull back and coming down on your vehicles, your equipment, or you. Okay, probably everybody knows these things. Thea watches these videos and she learns from watching them as well. So we'll see what I get accomplished. It's time to play. Here we go. okay. I didn't get much accomplished physically out here before I had to go inside and watch a live presentation and all. But I got that jamb cut out around there. It's all set, same as this one here. It's a little bit of a bow to this one, but I made it out of 2 boards, so it will work just fine. So I think one of the things I'm going to do over here is do some cleanup in here, take this lumber off of the horses here, restack it. Now that I've gotten the jambs established. Now I've got a lot more to do with some of these boards and the rest of these boards in here, so I'll be playing the same game over and over again, taking boards out of here and taking boards out of here and over there, bit by bit, to do all the different projects, including the overhead doors. But while it's nice outside, my thought is clean this area up, then go on out and get the overhead doors in here. They're pretty heavy, but I may be able to use the green machine to bring them in here. I've just got to make some more space because the things I put over here, I probably should make a little more space for them over there as well. So that's my thought process right now. I made pretty good use of my time in the office while listening to the court proceedings and all, listening to the lawyers present their cases for their what I consider outrageous lawyer fees for this case and all. And it's, you know, I just think about listening to professionals, lawyers, arguing why they should be compensated so much for what appears to me as a shareholder in the company to be absolutely outrageous, way above what the norms are for the court. You know, this one, the plaintiff's attorneys are looking for $176 million to represent, I believe it's 4 individuals who went against what the rest of us shareholders had voted for twice to uphold a compensation package, and it's just absolutely ridiculous, and I think it's crazy, and it's, you know, before I retired, so I retired probably almost 15 years ago now, as an internal medicine specialist, veterinarian at a emergency critical care hospital, and you know, it's even before I was there, I was at Cornell for a while. And being in the position that I was in, the pharmaceutical companies, when they come out with a new drug, well, because of the potential influence, like nowadays there's influencers for all different things online. So if you're thinking about whatever it is, solar panels to a new car, there's influencers that are going to try and guide you, and they're being compensated in some way. And back then, you know, being board certified as a specialist in an area, their thoughts were, well, general practitioners will want to hear what drugs you're recommending for treating various conditions with and all. And so I'd get invited to various launches of new medications when the big pharmaceutical companies would come out with them. And I'd see the prices. Now this is, you know, like 20 years ago. I'd see the prices of some of these drugs and all, and I'd say, you know, this is going to hurt a lot of people who just can't afford these medications for their pets. And although these medications might be actually pretty darn good, it may decrease pain and suffering. It may really improve their quality of life, and in some cases prolong their lifespan as well. So it was hard to argue that these medications were, you know, a really good a really good development overall. And there's a whole bunch of medications that I think of that to this day I think were really good choices for me to go ahead and utilize in the environment that I was in and recommend as well. However, I often had difficulty with the prices that they charge, and because when I would look at it, the cost of what the manufacturing the drug and distribution, controlling it, so some medications really have to be kept in a very controlled environment, no temperature ranges. Temperature ranges could inactivate the active ingredients. So there's a whole bunch of things you need to consider and all. But I would try to take all those things into account, and I would question them and say, hey, why is it this much? Why couldn't it be 1/3 that cost? And they'd often say to me, well, for every drug that actually gets ultimately approved and manufactured, it starts off with simple molecules, and it might start off with a few thousand different molecules, and then go through various stages of testing, and most of those get abandoned. And so there's tremendous costs involved in that. And, and that was palatable to me. But it's still never set right. And, we wouldn't be in the financial situation that we are in if it weren't for our investments. Quite honestly, I made very good money as a specialist, and Thea as a general practitioner. We made very good money. And but we wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing this day and age if we just relied on that money that we made. It was because of our investments and all that afforded us the ability to have the equipment that you see around here and do the things that we're doing. So we're very fortunate that we invested. And that's one of the topics that I've been over many times in videos about investing in yourself, understanding your approaches and understanding the 10 different forms of capital, the things to invest in. And I'm only one form is financial. So when I think of all of those aspects and me having prospered from investing in very specific companies over the years, I enjoy their success. In other words, the value of my shares going up over time. But I've also been a very conscientious, environmentally aware and practice what I would consider green principles for investing, and realizing that nothing's pure, but always trying to make sure that the goals are in line with our life goals and mission. And we've enjoyed the profitability of the companies that we've invested in, because that's allowed us to be able to do the things that we're doing here. But at the same time, when I look at some corporations and some businesses, I find it frustrating swallowing it, the high cost of what we consider health care. Going to the doctor, getting various tests done, taking the prescribed prescriptions and all, as opposed to doing things that may circumvent or diminish the underlying causes of these disease processes, instead of chronic management, getting to the underlying cause and actually promoting those things and trying to make everybody aware. Full disclosure, when you're consuming some of these products, it's detrimental to your quality of life and longevity, both of those things, and ultimately your financial pocketbook as well, because all of these things in the mass, when we look at large populations, all of these things raise the costs of health care, because so many people are not appropriately managing their own health and relying on a pill or a treatment to help them get better and all. And now I've gone way off on a tangent from our build here. But those are the things that I think about. So, while I was watching that, I generated a couple of emails and a message to a couple of companies to let them know how I feel about the topic and all. And I think that's really important, to be able to discuss these things openly and to realize what happens when we don't have checks and balances on where our dollars are being spent and all. I think back to 2008 when we had the big crisis where the market fell and homeowners were being taken advantage of by the bank system. People who got loans should never have gotten loans, and it created such a hassle, such a stress for so many people, and the banks never ended up paying for it. They actually got compensated by our government as a result. And it's a lot of this is the special interests, the lobbying, the lawyers, and I'm not not all lawyers are terrible, but listening to attorneys trying to justify getting compensated for what I would consider a frivolous lawsuit at such astronomical rates, it just seems outrageous to me. Anyways, so I went off on this tangent. Sorry about that. Be aware. Always be thinking about the choices that you make in life, how that's going to impact your future, how that's going to impact others, and just take those things into consideration. So I'm going to stop babbling now, and I'm going to pick up here and see if I can get some materials moved while I'm still capable of doing that now. So I'm going to get started.
They lean on the fence, eyes rolling slow, whisper he's lost it every place I go. Swinging its shadows, chasing wild air, building a castle from dust and a prayer. Call it delusion, call it insane, I call it fuel running hot in my veins. Let them laugh, let them stare, I feel the ache, but I'm still there. They say I'm crazy, watch me prove it right, risking it all in the dead of night. Every bruise, every scar, every drop of sweat is a brick in the dream they haven't seen yet. I invest in the man in the mirror each dawn, push through the pain till the doubters are gone. Laugh all you want, it's gasoline on the flame. I'll finish this fire and sign it with my name. Hammer keeps falling, shoulders scream loud, crowd keeps mocking, but I'm too proud. Blueprints and blood, drawn line by line, what looks like madness is future design. They see the stumble, I see the climb. Ever you can just sharpens the rhyme. Let them point, let them jeer, their noise disappears. They say I'm crazy, watch me prove it right, risking it all in the dead of night. Every bruise, every scar, every drop of sweat is a brick in the dream they haven't seen yet. I invest in the man in the mirror each dawn, push through the pain till the doubters are gone. Laugh all you want, it's gasoline on the flame. I'll finish this fire and sign it with my name. One day the laughter will fade to a hush when the impossible stands in the dust. They'll ask for the secret, I'll hand them the truth. Believe in the work when the world calls it proof. They call me crazy, now they see the light. Stood in the wreckage and built it sky high. Every tear, every fall, every midnight ache forged the road that the dreamers will take. I invested in me when the world walked away, gave my best through the storm and the gray. Your laughter's the echo that pushed me to claim this life, this wind and I signed it with my name. Woke up this morning, sun on my face, chasing the dream at my own steady pace. No shortcuts taken, no half-hearted tries. Every step forward lights fire in my eyes. Sweat on the journey, heart in the grind, building the bridge from the now to what's mine. Whatever you do in life, give it your best. Pour in the passion, outshine all the rest. The winds that you stack are the bricks in your wall. Foundation for futures that answer your call. You're carving the path, writing stories in time. Skills in your pocket, turn mountains to climbs. Doors swing wide open when effort is true. The life that you're making is waiting for you. Late nights learning, small failures teach. Every scar earned is a lesson in reach. From canvas to code, from stage to the street. Master the craft till your heart beats complete. Doubt tries to whisper, but courage replies. Watch how the effort paints gold in the skies. Whatever you do in life, give it your best. Pour in the passion, outshine all the rest. The winds that you stack are the bricks in your wall. Foundation for futures that answer your call. You're carving the path, writing stories in time. Skills in your pocket, turn mountains to climbs. Doors swing wide open when effort is true. The life that you're making is waiting for you. One day you'll look back, see the tower you raised, built grain by grain through the nights and the days. The kid with a dream grew roots in the fight. Now opportunity knocks in the warm morning light. Whatever you do in life, give it your best. Pour in the passion, outshine all the rest. The winds that you stack are the bricks in your wall. Foundation for futures that answer your call. You're carving the path, writing stories in time. Skills in your pocket, turn mountains to climbs. Doors swing wide open when effort is true. The life that you're making belongs to you.
Well, I was able to accomplish a few things today. Not much. Got the door jamb in over there on the northeast overhead door. Got that notched out and got it installed. Cleaned up the lumber, restacked it here. Then went ahead, did a little more cleaning up, moving materials over to here, so I made room for the overhead doors. So these are the 5 overhead doors here. Here's the vinyl trim that'll go up against the door afterwards. These are the central poles that hold the torsion springs. The overhead door track work here, hardware and springs over here for each of the doors. Hopefully everything's there. The boxes did get a little bit wet, shouldn't really affect the units themselves. I went ahead and brought in the pallets that these guys were on out there, so they're in here as well. I really do like I call that a pallet jack. Really, really handy to have that. So I'm not maneuvering this big unit in here all the time. So I think all of my building materials are in from out there now. I decided not to bring in the entrance doors yet. As I got these things in here, I realized, well, I don't want to take up more space, and I'll probably install these ones before I get the other entrance doors in. At least that's what I'm thinking at this point. But before I can start installing the overhead doors, there's a couple of things I'll have to do. So tomorrow, one of the things I'll do is I'll put the nailer for the ceiling along the gable ends on all of the walls. So I want to get that installed ahead of time. So what I mean by the nailer up there is let's pretend that this right here is the double top plate right here. And what I want to do now is install another board that's going to overhang it so that when we install the ceiling, we can nail to that nailer sticking out from the double top plate. Some places are small blocks on top of the double top plate, like right up there that they use to secure the trusses in place. So I'll put I'll put fill in between each one of those small blocks. That way there, I don't know if you can appreciate it, when you look up there, that's how the boards will be, so that we can nail into the underside of that just like we'd nail into the trusses themselves. That's important. Let me come over here. So you can see there's a couple of blocks. There's a block there and a block there that they use to hold the truss. So I'll fill in 2x6s going all the way down. Keep those where they are, but fill in 2x6s. That way I can nail to that. Why is it important to do that before I build out my 2x6 walls here? I'll put the plywood here, and then I'll put the 2x6 on here. And it isn't going to go flush to that nailer edge. I don't want it to go flush to the nailer edge. I'm going to want to leave 5/8 of an inch so that when I put in the, geez, I wish I get this camera to say where I want it. When I put up the plywood, I can slip it on top of the 2x6 that's up there. So the 2x6 will have 5/8 of an inch. That's enough for a 1/2 inch sheet of plywood to slide on top of that vertical part. And of course there'll be a 2x6 or a 2x8 or 2x10 that goes right across there as well. So that's to mount the hardware. But two things that got to be done. I'm going to put the filler pieces of 1/2 inch plywood up against here. Affix that to that. Then the 2x6 goes on here after the nailers are installed all along the gable ends, all over, all sections of the building. Then we can start building out the 2x6s and 2x8s or 2x10s that ultimately all of those tracks will be mounted to. Hopefully. Then I got to go out back someplace and dig out whatever metal hangers I still have left over that didn't get destroyed when the building collapsed. I tried to save as many little pieces as I could and all. So I guess that covers what my plans are for tomorrow if things go well, and certainly what I accomplished today. And then I'm going to go in, since it's usually well over a decade between installing overhead doors. Where were the last ones? The ones were in the garage. No. Yes, the ones in the garage were the last ones I installed 20 years ago, I'm thinking, when I replaced those doors. So I'm going to go make a bullet sheet so I make sure that I cover all aspects of installing the doors, so it can go pretty smoothly, hopefully. Yeah, because when the guys delivered these overhead doors, they also do the installation for the overhead doors for Home Depot. And I asked him, I said, well, how much do you get for installing them? He says, well, $8 a square foot. So a 12 by 12, 144 square feet, it's like $1,400 or something like that, or $1,200, I can't remember. But you add these all up, each one of these doors, it's well over $5,000 for the labor for installing them. It's a good business to be in, I guess. Being an electrician, a plumber, a framer, a finish worker, fabricator, all of those jobs are going to be in demand for many years, and they certainly demand a good income as well. All right, that's it for today's video, folks. Appreciate you watching, your thumbs up, your comments, your questions. I hope you stay safe, take care, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye now.